Hello, everyone. Welcome to our day early comics preview show. I'm Jason,
I'm Andy.
and we're with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. So every Tuesday, once the comics have arrived and we've bagged and boarded them all, we divide them up and we read what we think are the most desirable comics everyone's been waiting to hear about all week. We do this spoiler light show. We try to tell you more about the comic than you'll get in the solicitation. We'll tell you if there's a major first appearance or certain major event, but we won't spoil all the details. We leave the fun of reading it as intact as possible. So let's start with some announcements because it seems like every week there's a new problem in the comics industry.
Yeah. Everybody wants to know our perspective on that.
Yeah, so this week, one of the largest comic distributors, Diamond Comics, sent out a message to all its retailers saying that our comics from them were going to be delayed and wouldn't arrive until as late as Friday. Now, these comics go on sale Wednesday. We typically get ours Monday, giving us very little time to get
Yeah.
them ready and put out and everything. So it's a bit of a struggle. Luckily, Lunar does all the DC. Our Marvel comes from Penguin Random House, so two-thirds of our stuff arrived. But there is a third that isn't here. We're still going to talk about it somewhat. Some of these we got to read early, others will at least show you the screens. So we just want you to know that wherever you shop, your store might be under some extra pressure this week as they try to get their comics out whenever they arrive.
It'll be very hard for them to get books that ship in Friday to come out tomorrow.
Yeah,
That'll be very hard.
and that's going to be everything from Image Comics, that's going to be Boom, and certain retailers are still getting their Marvel from them. So that's our little catch up. Let's launch into the comics this week, though. What do you want to start with,
Yes,
Andy?
thankfully we got some of the biggest books this week, no problem. And one of the ones I've been most excited about is Robin's. This is the winner of the round robin DC event that we still don't fully understand how it went down. If you actually voted in this, let us know in the comments because I don't even know where you voted for
Yeah,
these.
DC, I think it was a website, but
I guess
DC
so.
allowed readers to vote on a series of pitches,
Yeah.
and this one won.
Yes.
So here's the book
Which,
from it.
when we saw all the names announced, we saw this and was like, yeah, that one. Because
It was a strong contender.
people
for
love
idea.
the Robins, and to see them all come together is so cool. So this is by Tim Seeley, and in it, we begin with some, I don't want to say low-level crime, but it is definitely kind of some wannabe Gotham villains causing some ruckus. And this has brought all the different Robins together. So you've got Dick Grayson, you've got Jason Todd, you've got Tim Drake, Damian Wayne, and Stephanie Brown have all kind of converged on this, and they're all, witty banter. They all have kind of a sibling relationship, so that's really fun. But Dick Grayson, after they take care of this thing, is basically like, guys, now that you're all here, it's finally time for that talk that we've been meaning to have. And they're like, oh, do we have to? But essentially, they go back to Dick Grayson's current apartment, and he presents them with the question, okay, we're all here to decide, is the idea of Robin good or bad? Without Batman here, let's all discuss, was this a good idea? And maybe do we need to do anything to prevent more people from falling into this in the future? And it's very cool. It's a great setup for this story because they each go around the table and kind of give a one-page explanation, description of their time as Robin, what brought them into it, and then what I thought was really interesting is the only person who's still Robin out of this is Damian. But everyone else talks about, after they were Robin, what kind of lasting impact did that have on them? And what did they learn while doing that? So you get some really cool insight to the world of being a Robin. Well, this is not just an all sitting around talking issue. Something happens, and they are all thrust together as a team for the next big mission because something is happening that ties in all of their origins to one event. And this one event has been sparked by, and it's not a spoiler because this was actually in the solicitations, someone who is claiming to be the actual first Robin.
The original Robin.
The original Robin, who turns out not too nice of a person. But they do have their first appearance in this. It's only like a one-page thing, kind of a big reveal, even though they kind of let it leak in the solicitations. But you do see this character. I get very Robin King vibes, like from Dark Knight's Death Metal. It's kind of a twisted version of Robin. But if this turns out to be true, if, you know, Bruce Wayne really had someone who maybe he was had the idea of Robin with this person, this could be a pretty major first appearance. I think this was a great issue. It's in my it's tied for my favorite issue of the week. I love the scene where they're talking about their time being Robins, and you even kind of find out how long they were Robin for. I know in Stephanie Brown's case, they give an exact number of days that she was Robin. And it's really funny, but great insight to these characters. And I really hope, even though this is just a mini series, this needs to be an ongoing one, because I feel like this is such interesting chemistry and interesting. They all have like a thing that bonds them together, is they've all worked under Batman. It's cool hearing, you know, Damian being like, well, I'm the one who actually deserves to be Robin because I'm actually the son of. And you get their kind of philosophical ideas. You know, he sees being a Robin as training to become Batman. And you have Tim Drake who says, well, I became Robin. I volunteered to be Robin. Dick Grayson was the first Robin, the oldest Robin. So, anyways, I think if you're a fan of DC at all, of Batman, of Robins, this is, I think, one of the definite pickups of the week.
I'm looking forward to reading it later, and I'm sure when it gets to Jason Todd, he just drops the mic. Like, how was your time as Robin?
Yeah, that's a big thing of like, I'm the one who died and came back.
Yeah.
He basically says, you should all thank me that I was a Robin, because if I didn't turn from my life of being a criminal, I would be a kingpin of this city. And it's like, to be fair, that may be true. So, yeah, great issue. I love, you know, that it isn't all action. We actually get some really good setup. We have one variant, and these are such funny variants they're doing. They're called like the workout variants, and every issue is going to have a different former Robin, like post or during a workout session. So of course we start off with a Babstar, Dick Grayson, in all his glory.
All right, so I'm going to start with a DC book as well. This is unintended. we do whatever order each of us feels like, but I read Batman number 117. This is a really significant book because it is the end, well, it is the near end of Fear State. It is the end of Fear State in Batman proper.
Yeah.
It is the last book that James Tynion is writing for the Batman title, this very title. So the reason I say it's the end of Fear State in Batman, and not just the end of Fear State, there's a Fear State Omega one-shot that's coming up that I can't wait for, and you'll find out why, because of what I have to say on this book. So things are not going Simon Saint's way in the Batman book. You know, he set Scarecrow up to do the whole Fear State thing, and of course, what do you know? Scarecrow has backstabbed him. You know, this has been going on for issues now. This is no spoiler unless you haven't been reading Batman in months. And so in this one, it's interesting because Simon Saint starts to show his true colors. You know, one way you can really get to know someone, this is true in life, is seeing them under stress. You know, when everything's going good for somebody, it's easy for them to be happy-go-lucky. It's easy for Simon Saint to say, I'm here to save Gotham, and I'm here to do good. Well, when his plans start cracking, you'll really get to see him this issue. It was really cool to see his facade crack and what's beneath it. I know you said
in a previous one, it's like, you're still not even sure this far in, does he actually think what he's doing is good? He just goes about it the wrong way. So I'll be interested to see his true colors come out.
Yeah, I have a type of person I could relate him to, but it would spoil it. But in a future issue, like a future episode, when he comes up again in another book, I'll be like, I know what sort of character he's being portrayed as by Tynion. So the fate of Gotham in this issue is actually in the hands of Miracle Molly, which is pretty cool. She is doing something that will make or break the day. Her and Batman, they go back to their philosophical conversation they had back when he was infiltrating the Unsanity Collective, about if people can still turn good on their own or if they have to be led into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Unsanity Collective, they believe you got to erase your own mind, that you're not strong enough. That is sort of a pinnacle point in this. And their little philosophical discussion in this has very big ramifications.
Mm-hmm.
She suddenly is a very major character in this issue, for this issue, and not just in a necessarily heroic way. Let's
Mm.
put it like that. Let's remember she's part of I guess, a technically terrorist group.
Yeah.
So Tynion does not forget about that. There's a lot going on in this book because I mean a lot of things have to get
Yeah.
tied up. So also before that, Batman is still in his battle with Peacekeeper 01, so you get to see where that goes. And then other characters aside, you have Harley Quinn trying to talk Poison Ivy off the ledge of destroying Gotham. Because Ivy has all her plants all over Gotham that can just make Gotham fall into the tunnels
Mm-hmm.
below. Plus, last issue, was that two Ivies we saw? Will they get back to that? Of course they do. They get back to that. You get a good story on what's that all about. You get some resolution with all of that. Tynan's good at packing things into
Yeah.
these issues. Let's see, what else? So, the other thing I would like to say is some things happen in this that puts a lot of future state plots in question to me. That's why I'm excited for this, Fear State Omega. There are things that happen in this that tell me, wait a minute, this doesn't seem like future state's going to go down the way that they portrayed it,
Yeah.
which is strange. But maybe the Fear State Omega will clear it up. So read the issue. I think everyone will see what I'm talking about. Lastly, there is a backup Batgirl story that has the first cameo of Seer.
Mm-hmm.
You get to see Seer not on a TV screen, not an image. You get to see who Seer is. But it's tied with another book this week, which I'll talk about later, Nightwing. They
Yeah.
both have Seer in it. And I have even more to say with the Nightwing
Mm-hmm.
one. I kind of spotted something I was telling you
Yeah.
about that I don't know if everybody would see. So I'll get to that in a little bit. The last thing I'll say is all the DC books this week have a surprise preface to the upcoming Batgirls comic.
Mm-hmm.
It has like a little 4 or 5 page, oh, Batgirls is coming, and here's a little
Yeah.
bit of that. So that's cool too. So a whole lot in this issue wraps up Fear State mostly, except a lot of my future state questions, and I think the Omega is going to answer that. Like this took turns I couldn't see, but that's because I was assuming things would go the future state way.
Yeah.
So after Omega, I'll be able to say personally if I think it was fair or if it was a little bit like you couldn't have known that. One of those mysteries you can
Yeah.
never figure out. So we'll have to see. Still, very good read. A lot of stuff in it. Here is the Molina variant. And what a run on Batman! Hats off to Tynion.
Yeah.
He did a lot of cool stuff. So.
I'm interested too because that thing I pointed out in there too. There's a character that shows up that I'm like, I don't know how this happens and why no one's like turning around pointing at it saying, "Who are you?"
Another future state character. Andy showed me in the background. I mean, it does appear to be that character.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, so Fear State Omega has a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
I doubt we'll get the answer to all of them, but
I think there's been some timeline problems.
Yeah, just
over at DC.
I don't know if any of us really thought that Future State was definite. I think we would see a lot of elements of it, and maybe at some point they would try to prevent some of the things from it, because it was said it is a possible future. But it just seems funny that some are really like, man, this is the only way it can go is this, and then some kind of seem to have forgotten about what's going on there.
Yeah.
So I forgot to take my first one off. Next off, tied for my favorite one this week, and it's kind of a surprising one. I was not expecting this to be as just fun and action-packed as it was. So this is Amazing 78.BEY or Bay, or it stands for Beyond.
Beyond Corporation.
But so usually Spider-Man, I want to say, does this more than any other series. Is they do their point something issues.
They do, yeah.
They've did it during the Craven story in the previous run, where they did like point whatever, and it was like one shots of the characters who were involved in it. This is much the same, but I didn't realize it till I finished the issue that this was written by Jed MacKay, who's been writing Black Cat and has been writing
Black Cat,
Moon Knight.
Yay, Moon Knight.
So it's like this is good pedigree on this book, and that explains why I had so much fun with it. So in this, we have Colleen Wing and Misty Knight, who we have seen in this run of Spider-Man here and there. They kind of made a bigger statement in a previous issue about who are they actually working for. But in this one, that's who we mostly focus on. And in it, they are training Ben Reilly, or kind of testing him, testing how, what are the limits of his spider powers.
Push him to the limit.
Push him to the limit. And, I mean, to start with, Colleen and Misty's banter and their camaraderie is great. Like, it is really believable and fun. You can tell they're like friends / co-workers. But Colleen builds a simulation to train Ben Reilly in. And this simulation is a horror slasher movie version of the Avengers Mansion. And it is as fun as it sounds. It is over the top. You can tell, like, they kind of talk about, like, Misty Knight's like, why did you make it like this? And Colleen's like, I watched a lot of movies in high school and stuff. But we get a little bit of Ben Reilly in this. But then they get a call that there is a villain rampaging the city, a new villain. Now, you'll have to read it to see if you think this villain is going to go on to be anything, or if a part of them is, because there is something in here that looks like it's going to be carrying forward from this villain. But something happens, and Misty and Colleen are thrown into that simulation with one of those classic, like, you can't get out unless you win situations, which are really fun. And so this is, I wouldn't say it's like the most important thing. Like, it makes sense why it's not in the main numbering. It's a point issue, but it is maybe my favorite issue of this Amazing Spider-Man little run so far, because of how, like, high octane energy it is, and the dialogue, and just the fun this whole issue has. So that is tied with Robin's as my pick of the week. And once again, a key character, the same character that showed up in the last issue, shows up again, and we're slowly uncovering the Beyond Corporation and what their motives are, and then Misty Knight and Colleen Wing and maybe another organization that's working behind the scenes. So that is this issue. We've got the A cover. And then we can't have a week without a Peach Momoko cover.
So yeah, Andy was telling me about that one when he was reading it. He was like, yeah, it's the Avengers Mansion, but all the Avengers are slasher people. Yeah. And I was like, you mean like, you know, like Freddy and Jason? He's like, yeah. So I can't wait to check that one out later. I'm a big horror fan, so that sounds great. All right. So also by Jed MacKay, I read Moon Knight #5. This series has been awesome. I've been enjoying this. Many of the people who shop with us have been enjoying this. So check out the cover. Moon Knight, all these just chains resting on him. This does not happen in the issue. This is definitely metaphorical.
There's no giant
for
chains.
The pressure he is under. And I'll tell you, this issue is two things. There's an investigation, but interwoven during this investigation, there is Moon Knight with his therapist, and that's what a lot of this image, I believe, represents. And that's what's cool about Moon Knight is he's a very troubled character. Mm-hmm. He needs a therapist, and that's some of the best parts of the book.
He needs to pay them extra for him.
Yeah, and in this, his therapist asked him Dr. Sturman asked him the really hard question of, why are you so unhappy? And being Moon Knight makes you unhappy. So why are you Moon Knight?
Mm-hmm.
Which is really interesting. He has a very long answer that has to do with his history, his origin, the stuff that's gone on with his god. Uh, well worth the read of the full answer. But the part of it I'll tell you was, you know, you'll have to read why he says this, but he basically kind of shows that being Moon Knight is all he has left.
Mm-hmm.
It's very cool storytelling, a very dark answer that makes total sense to the Moon Knight mythology. I was really happy with that part. But that's only half the issue. The other half of the issue is, if you've been reading the other issues, there has been a villain in the shadows who keeps throwing stuff at Moon Knight. And I don't mean, snowballs. I mean like other villains, other things. He's been, just tormenting Moon Knight from the shadows. Well, there's a revelation in this about who it might be. And so Moon Knight goes into an investigation, and let's just say by the end of the issue, a close ally of Moon Knight may not be who they seem, and instead we may have their first appearance as a new villain. Okay, so not necessarily a full first appearance, but a person who we already know's first appearance as a new villain. Name, everything. So just want to make sure nobody misses that. So yeah, that otherwise just great storytelling, really good issue this week. And here we have the Sue variant. And we got one other. Here is the 1 in 25 Arthur Adams variant that we're selling to our customers for $35. I just can't get enough of the Moon Knight covers.
And the main one, it gives me a little bit of a feel of the classic Spider-Man holding up all the rubble and everything.
Yeah, the water on him.
There's a thing with superheroes holding up large amounts of weight. You've got the Hulk on his cover holding up the big thing, and it's a thing they do.
There have been parts of my life where I felt like this. I think a lot of people watching can relate.
So my next one is a halfway point for Nice House on the Lake. This is issue number 6. After this issue, it is going on hiatus until March. So you don't have to wait too long. I'm glad this isn't. We're not dealing with Saga here. You're not have to.
What? Was there a comic called Saga?
8 years or whatever before this next one. So I was hotly anticipating this one because I was thinking, what are we going to see right here that's going to have our minds pondering until March.
Return.
Yeah. So in this, you do get a lot of answers. There is an explanation of maybe what Walter is, who built the Nice House on the Lake, and what the overall reason for these certain people to be there are. We got a little bit of that in the last issue, but I feel like this kind of spells out a little bit cleaner and a little bit more exact. But it's still, as you can imagine, kind of murky in some of the details. But in this issue, how they've been having some flashbacks in previous ones, this one is mostly a flashback. But this is a flashback about the character that we discovered in the other house on the lake, the not as nice house on the lake, but still probably pretty comfortable. We get his backstory and what ties him in with Walter and why he was secluded from the others in this kind of force field world that they're all in. He said at the previous issue that he knows how to save the world. That is elaborated on more. But as you can also expect, it does end on a cliffhanger, kind of feels a little bit like a season finale where there's some closure, but also there's some, stay tuned because this isn't over yet. It was a good issue. It wasn't quite as whoa as I expected. There was nothing exploded or anything, but I thought it was another solid issue. I hate that we have to wait till March to read the next part, but I think if you've been reading the series, you'll be very satisfied as it continues to be great. So there's our A cover. And then we have the Martinez variant. And like all the other variants, surprisingly, what's on the cover actually does happen. So stay tuned for that. Some fun stuff.
Okay, so I read Batman Secret Files Gardner. So there's the Gardner in her trademark suit with Poison Ivy. This is also a Fear State tie-in. This ties up the loose ends to do with the Gardner. They're much like the Moon Knight story. Or the Moon Knight comic this week. This also has sort of two stories going on in it, an A and a B plot, and it kind of goes from one to the other. Pretty much, we got the one story is what is the Gardner doing in Gotham, and a conversation she has with Batman. Basically, here's why I'm here. Here's what I'm going to do before I leave. And here's what will keep me away. And here's why I might have to come back. You get to hear all of that. It's very, very interesting. But I think the better part of the comic is the second part of the story, which is the Gardner's past and who she is. Because she is linked in with some very major characters. This was written by James Tynion, so if you're getting all the Fear State stuff, and you want the stuff by the main dude, this is him. He's done a good job on these one shots. They're all a little oversized, so there's a lot of room to breathe and really tell these character stories. But this story is just about as much about Poison Ivy as the Gardner. In fact, if you think you know Poison Ivy's origin, it gets changed in this one. But bear in mind, every time DC relaunches, whether it's New 52, Rebirth, they'll do that. They'll tweak a character's origin for that sort of telling of the DC universe. So erase what you think you know about where Poison Ivy came from, because she has a different origin in this, pretty radically. And on top of that, I like what Tynion does. He tries to tie all of the plant characters together.
Yeah.
So there's Woodrue is a major part of this from Swamp Thing villain Woodrue. There are names that are dropped that are very close to the Gardner and Ivy, such as Alec. I think we all know where the name Alec. I mean, if you read any Swamp Thing at all, but Alec, Linda, Woodrue, Pamela Isley, and the Gardner all have a common history. Which makes sense.
Yeah.
They're all big into plant stuff. And I mean, look how powerful they've made Poison Ivy at this point. She has like Swamp Thing powers practically. So I was really surprised to read it that way, but it all fit nicely. I was like, this makes sense. This all fits kind of better than they're all randomly plant things all over the place that just bump into each other occasionally. So this will tell you also more about the Gardner. You do get her history. Who is she? Her childhood, how'd she get her powers, how does she know Poison Ivy. So a lot of tell here, and it wraps up her portion of things, but I liked it to give us that extra helping of, oh yeah, and here's a bunch about Poison Ivy, and maybe even about, Swamp Thing, and Woodrue, and all these other people. So, pretty cool read. And here is the Ejecure variant with Gardner on it. I wonder how much more we're going to see of Gardner now that Tynion's gone, though.
Yeah, I think that's a big question about all of the characters, even like Punchline, Ghostmaker, all of those characters. It's like, okay, who's going to pick up those mantles? Is it going to be all in Batman? Or are they going to kind of, is one going to be a member of another team? Or
I'll tell you this: back to Ivy in Batman, which I previously reviewed. I had so much to say. Something very major happens with Ivy, and something pretty important happens between Ivy and Harley. So that's also in Batman 117. So
wow. So my next one is probably what a lot of people are going to be talking about this week. This is Superman, Son of Kal-El, number 5. It feels like we've already talked about this, but it's because we've, it was announced, and then
it was in the news everywhere. We had people calling for pre-orders every day.
Yeah. So, of course, people who just read the headlines say, this is the issue where Superman comes out as bisexual. Yes and no. I'll say that. So, for us comic readers, you also are reading a story. This continues Jonathan Kent's I would say, discovery of it's not so easy being Superman.
Yeah, and what kind of Superman
What
will
kind
he
of
be?
Superman he's going to be. Which I think this is a really good issue for the fact of you've kind of have that thing where you have him when he was Superboy and his dad Superman, and maybe he didn't always agree with him, or it's like, you've got all this power, why aren't you doing more? And I think Jonathan is slowly learning why he can't do more. So in the previous issue, the big villain that's been in and out of this series kind of exposed Jonathan to something that super boosted his powers. So I don't know if he's maybe up to the level of his like what his father's abilities were at this point, or if they surpass them. But suddenly it's one of those, I can hear everything, I can see everything. Like I have to keep my eyes closed because I take in everything. I see every grain of dust in the air. I can hear people all around the world screaming, and because he is determined to be Superman, he goes to try to help every single one of the things that he hears and sees. And that, for one thing, he is kind of boosted up at this point, and that starts wearing off. But also just the strain of, like, I still can't help every person is very hard. He gets a call that Jay is in, I don't know if they say in trouble, but that he needs him. Uh, but come to find out, Jay is actually just worried about Jonathan overworking himself. So that is actually the crux of this issue: is Jonathan still coming to terms with what kind of Superman he is, and the pressure and the amount of responsibility that comes from that. And kind of, I feel like without them straight up saying, he's understanding more about his father in it, which I think is excellent. I think that's such a cool thing. Is um, you learn that behind Superman's smile and everything, it was uh, a lot of pressure to.
A lot of heavy chains all over you,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
on a certain cover.
He could join Moon Knight, but it does have the moment in this where I will say, if you've seen the news and seen the pictures from this issue, um, that is about all you get. I will say, to say that Jonathan, this is his coming out issue. Visually, I would say yes, but nothing is actually spoken. This is not coming out to the world. This is between these two individuals at this point. So there could be more along the way, um, because the life of a Superman never slows down. So of course something else comes up and pulls them away. So yes, this is, I think, a big issue for that, but I also like that this is still part of a big story that, if you've been reading it, is a natural progression of it.
So, I think this is out there enough to say. So there is the headline grabbing kiss,
Yeah,
but there's not a, okay, now let's define terms and let's
right.
talk.
Yeah,
It's you get that, and then, oh, gotta
yeah,
go because of something.
yeah. You get the kiss, which I
Okay.
believe was like in the news
Oh,
announcement of
yes.
it. Like,
Yeah.
that page is kind of the most you get out of this. There's very little said regarding that in
And so
this.
they'll probably get back to all that in future
Yeah,
issues.
which I think is good. Don't cram
Right.
it all into one issue. Let this naturally play out. So that is, of course, one of the biggest issues this week. But also recommend reading this series. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's really cool seeing a young Superman and how he's learning to be Superman. Of course, we have a few variants for this. We have the Inhyuk Lee variant.
That's Jonathan and Jay Nakamura,
Yep, and then
whose
we
first
have
appearance is Son of Kal-El, issue number 2. There are a lot of people looking for that one.
we had a few people just, hey, by the way, do you have issue number 2? It's like, yeah, we know. We saw the news too. And then we have the Travis Moore variant. So look forward to your shops today. I'm sure they ordered up on it. This is probably one of the highest ordered books because we actually knew about all of this pre being able to order it.
Yep.
So um, you could speculate all you want if this is going to be go up in value or whatever, but usually stuff like that is a surprise, and then there's only a number of issues ordered that were ordered. This one, I think, places up their orders so everyone can
I'm just
get their
glad,
copy.
yeah, everybody could get it this time.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I think that was good. It wasn't. It's available from your stores.
So I'll say this week, in comics, love is in the air, even in Kang the Conqueror. So I read Kang the Conqueror #4, and you have Kang and Ravonna. They are just sort of twisted through time, intertwined with one another in a sort of a love, not exactly love-hate, but just love, unrequited love, complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah, situation throughout time. And what can I say? What calms the pain of unrequited love for Kang?
Time travel.
Close. He uses that, but is it taking over the world? Is it complete control over everyone forever? That might do it. That might solve some unrequited.
Let's say that's not immediately what
problems
my mind goes
that he
to,
has.
but for Kang, yes.
Well, yeah, this is Kang. So in this, you get the last pieces of what makes Kang tip more to the villain side than the hero side. Because you also get to see him as a hero in this. And you get to hear what he's thinking the whole time. And of course, that humanizes anyone, even somebody would see as a villain, when you get to kind of see, here's what they went through, and here's why they felt that way, and here's what they did. But this issue, you see the last few pieces fall into place that puts Kang definitely more in the villain slot, although he's not just an unreasonable monster or anything like that. Maybe certain versions of him are, though, that he has to deal with, even in this series. This has been a really cool series. I like what they've done by exploring Kang. But even more than that, Kang has the one puzzle he can't figure out, and that is Ravonna. It's incredible how much they have done with her character, and even by the end of this issue, he is still scratching his head, and so am I, about how is she kind of everywhere. Like, there's a lot of time travel, and there's always a Ravonna. I think next issue they might clear it up. I'm really interested to see how they clear up that mystery. So one more issue to go, Kang the Conqueror. Really cool issue. I enjoyed very much. This is the Cafu variant. I think this variant is perfect for what happens in this issue. They're kissing, they're together, but look what's behind them. 2 time portals and a dagger heading towards each of their backs. I really like this variant. I liked it. I saw it after I read the issue. Usually I look at it beforehand, but I just happened to read the issue first, and I was like, that's perfect. Like, whoever did this one must have read the issue and really got it.
I love they're also expanding, because, before this, even some diehard Marvel fans couldn't tell you much about Ravonna.
Yeah.
Then she appears in the Loki TV show, and it's like, hey, let's, not only explore Kang some more, let's explore some of his world and some of the characters involved, like Ravonna, who, now I'm sure we're going to see much more of after this series.
Loki season 2 is confirmed.
Yeah.
So maybe even in that. And then Kang is going to be starring in the upcoming Timeless comic that we'll be going over this Friday on Comics from the Future.
Wow.
He's right on the cover of it. So
awesome. So my next one is one that I'm sure no one has ever read before or seen anything about. This is Fantastic Four #1 Anniversary Tribute. So this is like they did with the Captain America tribute issue. Every page is done by a different artist. It's the original script, which makes it kind of funny. You see some Adam Hughes art with some Stan Lee dialogue, and it's pretty fun. But this is not only Fantastic Four #1. This is also Fantastic Four Annual #3, which is the wedding issue of Reed and Sue, which I thought was cool. So I kind of opened the first page and I looked at the list of artists. I didn't realize there's another list of artists further along. So there is so many artists in this. we have people like, on the first story, Carlos Pacheco, David Lapham, Salvador LaRocca, Greg Land, Aaron Cooter, Neil Adams, and a ton more on just the first story.
Wow.
I don't have to like explain to you what the first story of Fantastic Four is. You can find that one pretty easily to read. Um, and then
Maybe not first print though.
not first print. I think they've done it a couple of times since then. And then Fantastic Four Annual has art by Acko, Adam Hughes, Sanford Green, Brian Hitch, Terry Dodson, Mark Bagley, Daniel Warren Johnson, Oliver Coipel, and so many more. I was like, I'm going to name the biggest ones, and they're all biggest, so I just had to show you a few of them. But the art in this is incredible. It's so cool to kind of look at the list of names and then read and be like, okay, who was this? And go back and check and see who it is. And I think that's part of the fun of this too, is you'll have someone with like a hyper realistic style, and the next one will be like kind of cartoony and stuff. It's really fun. You could tell they also did the annual, because the annual stars a bunch of other characters. So you have Oliver Coipel do a page that features Thor. You have Marco Cicchetto doing a page with Daredevil. So you get a ton of characters in this as well. It's really fun. If you're a big Marvel fan, it's a good reason to go back and read these early Fantastic Four issues, to check them out with some new art. So, yeah, we've got the A cover for that, which is by Steve McNiven. And then we had the Jim Chung variant with all the characters.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Giant Size X-Men. That was
Yep.
really awesome too, seeing Giant Size X-Men done by different modern artist teams.
Yeah, it's funny, and you realize how well it just still works. You know, like all the story, no matter what artist you put on there, you can follow it, and it's still really fun.
And Marvel's first family. So I read Nightwing 86, which is a Fear State tie-in. I have to say, this links a lot more with Fear State and a lot more with Batman 117 than the Gardner one-shot. The Gardner one-shot, very enjoyable, cool, but things in this, I had to consider reading order. You know, like I like to tell people, read this one and that one. I do have to say, I don't think it really matters too much. I would probably read this one before Batman 117 if you're getting both of them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters a ton. But, I mean, things that happen in this mirror things that happen in 117. So we have Nightwing teaming up with Tim Drake and the Batgirls. They're going up to this base up here. This is called... what are they calling it? They're calling it Skybase 01. They love their dash and numbers.
They were really expecting to have a lot more, at least double digits at some point.
At least up to 99, at least up to 10 or 11. So Tim Drake teams up with Nightwing and the Batgirls. They need to get up to that Skybase because that's where Seer is, the anti-Oracle. And how are they going to get up there, though? How can they fly this base that has people on it with weapons who are going to shoot you as you try to fly up to it? You'll just have to read the issue to find out. But let's just say that this is the only comic I can think of that has what I would consider a heroic mugging. And it's a joke. When you read the issue, you'll get what I'm talking about. It's a joke. It made me laugh. So this is tied with Batman 117 for first cameo of Seer. Not on a screen, you get to see the actual physical person, but there's something you might miss. So watch for it carefully. You can see not just Seer, like they show Seer and cameo at the end, where it's as they do in many comics, but before that, if you carefully watch, Seer is in it prior and has a line of dialogue right from their mouth. They actually ask a question to Nightwing, who responds, and Nightwing doesn't know who he's talking to. And this is face to face. It's very sneaky.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to read this and miss this. So you don't just get the cameo like you did in 117. You get a line of dialogue. So this might go down as first full.
Yeah, I think...
I don't know. I mean, the way I've seen it go back and forth, I think it's still going to be cameo, but it could go down as first full because there is a line of
think
dialogue.
Also, you know, when it comes down to that, people are like, well, what chronologically comes first? And I think the Nightwing is actually chronologically, you know, you see her before Batman. So, I mean, some people are very specific about that, and I think that's how that one is.
Well, I didn't want anyone to miss that because I delighted. I went back. I'm like, I saw that thing. There, haha. I got it. So past that, just another really good issue of Nightwing. I will say, as good as these have been in with the Fear State, I am looking forward to them getting away from Fear State. I think what they were doing with Nightwing, I think Nightwing, like all the titles, got pulled into Fear State. I want to get back to the main plot that they were doing, and that's going to start again next issue. So I'm really looking forward to that. Although I think they leaned in and did some really cool stuff during this little foray into the Fear State. So we also have this Jamal Campbell variant cover. You also get to find out how far Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson's romance is progressing, and let's just say it takes another step.
Oh, wow.
So,
man, more love in the air.
Yes.
Wow.
Love is in the air in these comics.
My next one is a new mini-series, Wonder Woman Evolution. I can't want to say Revelation. It's Evolution. So I'm not sure. I should have looked up how many issues of this it's going to be. But it is a new miniseries by Stephanie Phillips, and the art is by Mike Hawthorne. And it's interesting because it opens in sometime in the future, we don't know how far, with a Wonder Woman battling aliens on a planet somewhere. She's got kind of a different suit on. She's got like a laser axe. It's pretty intense. But the captions, the kind of narration going over the top of it is talking about humankind and how they are kind of like a plant, and at what point in their growth do they become like an invasive species and need to be plucked. And so that's kind of the idea behind this issue is the evolution of humankind, but also Wonder Woman. We go back to like the present day where Silver Swan is attacking a museum, and Silver Swan is a character that was introduced a few volumes of Wonder Woman back. She's actually appeared in one of the animated movies, and she is a character that you could almost say Wonder Woman created, because she was a girl who Wonder Woman saved, and she thought that Wonder Woman would come back and check on her and all this stuff, and Wonder Woman didn't do any follow-up, and she felt more lonely than ever, and then became this villain called the Silver Swan. Interesting story from a couple of years ago. But Wonder Woman, of course, comes in to stop her, and the fight, they have kind of your typical superhero fight, but Silver Swan kind of makes the point of, we keep doing this, and it's always going to end the same way, because you're the same Wonder Woman, and I'm the same Silver Swan. We're going to fight. We're going to go our separate ways. So I have evolved from that. One of us had to take the edge, and Silver Swan changes to, you could say, a more evolved, powerful form, and basically tells Wonder Woman, you are basically going to become irrelevant because you haven't changed in so many years. You're the same person, but the world around you is moving on. And this is an interesting thing when, this is a very classic idea of Wonder Woman, that she is so bothered by it, she even goes to Superman. Because Superman, if there's any other character that is such a staple and a pillar of the DC universe, and they have a very interesting conversation about who they are, what they are. Is it important for them to evolve or stay the same? And then, it's not a spoiler because I actually thought it was going to happen earlier in the issue. It's in the solicitation. Wonder Woman is abducted, essentially, by, we can figure, aliens. And we know in the solicitation it says she's going to have to fight as the the spokesperson of humanity, of Earth, and of
Right.
the human
I'm
race
remembering about this
in
now.
some kind of cosmic battleground, which I believe is what we saw at the beginning of the issue. This is a really good issue. It is, I'd say, the kind of the strongest part of it is the idea in the dialogue, especially the scene with her and Superman. I think is a kind of one of your classic conversations between these like pinnacles of superherodom and them kind of looking at themselves and talking about what their roles are in this world. I really liked it. I thought this was a very strong first issue to a series, a great setup issue for what I'm very interested is to come. I'm wondering how they're gonna because not pretty much one page of this was devoted to what the solicitation said the whole story was going to be. I'm interested to see how they take the idea of this Wonder Woman evolution and pull it forward into the situation she's going into. So, really fun first issue of this. If you're a fan of Wonder Woman, I definitely recommend it. Then we have the variant by Riley Rossmo, who is fighting Silver Swan on the cover.
I like Silver Swan's like, Wonder Woman, you need to evolve. And Wonder Woman's like, I got a laser axe.
She will have a laser axe. Maybe she'll come back to Earth and be like, haha, now I've evolved.
Okay, so I read Darkhold Wasp. This is another of the Darkhold one-shots where the characters have read from the Darkhold and gone insane, and we get a glimpse into what is going on in their crazy, twisted minds. This one follows Janet Van Dyne. She was the wife of Hank Pym, and a lot of it is a sad tale because she was very lonely, neglected by her husband in his shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Hank Pym was a very troubled person as well.
Yeah, those early stuff is pretty rough.
Yeah, so he doesn't treat his wife very well, and the Avengers are a lot more interested in him than her. She's almost like a sidekick without really getting the title of sidekick. Not to mention she's supposed to be his equal, his wife, and isn't really treated that way. So we get to see her kind of used and abused by Hank Pym and getting angry about it, angrier and angrier, but keeping it on the inside. There's some scenes where she commiserates with some other female heroes about how the male heroes treat them, which I think was pretty interesting take on things. And then you got it where Hank is finally fired from the Avengers because they say he's getting too dangerous. And this is the time period where, how would you like it if out in the garage your husband's building Ultron?
Yeah.
And doesn't want to talk to you about it and doesn't want you to see what he's working on. So it all culminates in some unthinkable things that Hank does, and finally, the Wasp has to show that she's got a stinger.
You're waiting to use that.
I am, and they use it in the book too, and you'll have to see what she does. But you get to see her little piece of personal hell in this very cool one shot. And we've got two variants on this one. We have the Casanovas connecting variant. I think you see where things are going a little bit. And then there is this 1 in 10 Tormy design variant for $15.
Does she get that new suit in it?
It might have been in there somewhere, but it was in there. It was in there.
It seems weird because I know I even kind of skimmed through it, and it seems less of like the horror story of like the grotesque of the Iron Man one and everything, and more of a human.
This was definitely
story.
A lot more of a human, sad.
Yeah,
all the things boiling inside of you.
Okay, so my next one up is only one Star Wars book this week, so we will be talking about in a minute. There are some of the IDW Star Wars books coming out. We do not have those yet, but from Marvel we do have Dr. Aphra number 16. So this is our first post War of the Bounty Hunters issue, but it's still dealing with some of the fallout from that. How could you not? So in a previous one, Aphra got a hold of this artifact from the Crimson Dawn flagship museum, and it is called the Dowser. And I really like this story they're setting up with it. It's a very interesting kind of segue out of War of the Bounty Hunters, where this item she found basically like overpowered her. It fried. She has like circuits in her arm. Fried that and kind of gave her one of those like Infinity Gauntlet moments of like just crazy amounts of power. And she kind of explains more about it because, of course, she is an archaeologist. She knows the background on these items and everything. And she explains about this is from a race called, it was from an ancient cult that was essentially trying to replicate the Force without having the Force. And it's a very dangerous thing. They said they did a lot of like sinister and dark things to create it. But now Aphra is tasked with going back and getting it for a client. And with that, she encounters someone which I can't figure out who it is. But she comes face to face with someone who knows her and has a lightsaber. And this point of time in the Star Wars timeline, it's not too good to have a lightsaber. There's people who are sent to hunt down people who are Jedi at this point. So a really interesting story. Aphra has been one of the best Star Wars comics because it's not afraid to go into some weird places with the whole mythology and everything. And this one also has really cool variants this week. We have the Sway variant, or is he going by Swabby on this one? No, this is the Sway variant. Really, really nice. And then we have the Sprouse Lucasfilm 50th Anniversary variant with, I believe this is the Force Awakens, yeah, with Rey and Finn.
Okay, so I read Nubia and the Amazons #2. So Nubia is the new queen of the Amazons, and she is uneasy with this title. She sees herself as more of a warrior than a leader. And so this issue begins with her going to the gods of Themyscira for guidance, and they offer her a gift. So there's also a villain in this, and you can't quite tell who exactly, but there's a villain inquiring about, hey, anybody know where the head of Medusa is?
Asking for a friend.
Probably not a good thing to
No.
be asking around for, but how this villain is able to travel throughout the Amazons is really kind of ghastly and surprising as well. You'll have to read the issue to see how that works. And in other things, they're holding tournaments with these new Amazon warriors who came out of the Well of Souls. They're having trials figuring out who's good at what, and one of them seems to have Earth ties to Nubia, like before she was an Amazon.
Huh.
And neither one quite knows it yet. They're both kind of figuring it out. Like as a reader, you kind of get to see if for both their ends and work it out. So that's pretty important to Nubia's history. And lastly, I would say there's a character. All flags are pointing towards this is an important character, at least for this series, and that is the character's name is Andromeda. So watch for Andromeda in this one. It makes me want to go back and read more of the first one to pick because there were all the new ones.
Yeah.
And it's like who's going to be more important, but my money is on Andromeda. So we also have this variant by Sozo.
Cool. So briefly mention this one. This is Aquaman the Becoming #3. And you know, if you've been reading this, you know the storyline so far where Jackson Hyde is kind of on the run because he's accused of blowing up part of the Atlantean Palace. But this one is really interesting just for a couple of little points. For one thing, he actually has to escape, use some of the Justice League's transporters that they have all across America to kind of like quick jump around, and you see some places that I didn't even know were still a thing. I will say the Justice League Detroit headquarters is shown. They even have like a logo and everything, and I remember that being a thing from the 70s and 80s in Marvel. I mean, in
That sounds like a
DC.
punishment. Like, you're off the team. You're going to Justice League Detroit.
Yeah, and it was a team that was like Aquaman and Martian Manhunter and stuff. That is kind of shown. Uh, the Justice League of America headquarters that is like currently uninhabited. It's a really cool scene. But the other thing I will say about this issue is it does have a first appearance of a new character. I don't think we've seen them before. I'll say it's one of the like taking the helmet off moments. I don't think we've seen this character like with the helmet on in a previous issue. I think this is their first one kind of hitting the scene. We do know this is a prelude to Aquaman. It says at the top, just like the last issue of Black Manta was. We still don't know anything about that story, but it looks like there are some new players coming into the Aquaman world that are going to be pretty big. And this first appearance is a character that seems like it's going to be hard to separate Jackson and this character from future stories. They're pretty firmly linked in it. So be on the lookout for that. I haven't seen any like reports talking about this being a first appearance, but it is. I mean, it's a pretty defined moment of this is this person and everything. So be on the lookout for that one. I think a lot of the Aquaman stuff is going to start heating up soon when we learn what's the end game of Black Manta and Aquaman the Becoming and what's coming probably early next year. And there is a variant for it, but we are already out of it.
All right, so I read Dark Ages 3. I've really been enjoying this series, and this one did not disappoint at all. This is a very action-packed, messed up issue. In this, the forces of Apocalypse begin attacking, and some heroes die. Now, of course, this is a what-if tale world.
Yeah.
So they could do that. But that's what's fun about reading those. So you definitely have some major character deaths in this. This all started because this creature called the Unmaker was going to destroy the world. And Doctor Strange had to do something to get rid of all electricity, because that's what the Unmaker ran on. Forever, though. Like, electricity is gone forever. And so that is the setting for Dark Ages, as per issue number 1. And this is set, a lot of years after that had first happened. So who would be so villainous as to want to bring the Unmaker back? Like the very thing that the whole world had to give up electricity to end. The same villain who has Magneto and Iron Man both working for him. Not of their free will, of course.
No.
And what he does and what he unleashes on the other heroes is really terrifying and terrible. But it was a very exciting issue. I really enjoyed reading it. You just gotta, when you know major heroes can be killed, it's like, I just want to see what goes down. Who does it? Who's the instrument of destruction? Who fights who? And so, very dramatic issue with a lot of action. I'll also say, even as loved ones fall, the characters learn about other characters they think are dead, but who are secretly working for the enemy. Not of their own free will. So there is also some hope that comes back. Even with the deaths, there is some hope as well. So we have this Okazaki variant. This is the connecting variant, so it connects in with the previous ones. And then we've got the 1 in 25 Lubera variant that we are selling for $25. Okay, so as we were talking earlier, actually, you know what? Here, why don't you show this off?
Just that.
While I get ready for our next segment.
So, one of the hottest books, I mean, that I don't know if anyone expected, was Soul Plumber. And we sold out very fast with Soul Plumber number 1, but it has gone back to a second printing. This is Soul Plumber number 1, second printing. I believe issue 2 is out. We also sold out of that one. We keep upping and upping our orders, and it keeps selling out. But if you missed it first time around, if you maybe came to your local comic book store an hour late, they maybe sold out completely. So ask and see if they've got the second printing in, same story for you to pick up this week.
If you're a completionist, it's the same cover, but they recolored it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we said at the beginning of the show that Diamond has not delivered comics to most stores across the country, ours included. We don't want you to go in your shop later this week and not know what the hot ones are.
We wouldn't be doing our job.
Correct. So I put together a little slideshow that's going to pop up in front of both of us, or between us, I guess. So this one I got to read an advanced copy. It was a digital copy. So I have read this, and I could give a good review of it right now. So this is by Ram V and Anand RK. That is the artist name, Anand RK. And this is a post-apocalyptic book. It is sort of the last radio station of a post-apocalyptic world where people are drawn to the radio station because they're out in the wastelands trying to find any bit of civilization. Maybe they find a radio. Oh, they get to hear music. And then as they get close to the signal, they can hear it louder. And then, oh, there's civilization. So you have two spots that this story kind of looks at. One is the radio station, and the other is this fuel outpost that's a little bit of ways from it. There are two girls who are traveling through the wasteland. One of them is injured, and the other isn't. So you get the moral dilemma of how long do you let the one person drag you down? Because apparently at night, these irradiated dog-like zombie creatures come out, and they kill anything that's outside at night, unless you're lucky. So the one character, she certainly doesn't want to leave her friend, but the friend's like, you're not going to make it. You could make it on your own and come back. They may have a car, come back for me, but we'll both not make it if you stay. So you get to see how that plays out. You get to learn about your characters through that sort of duress. You also get to meet the person who runs this radio station, and you get a couple other characters who are there trying to rob it. But things don't go that way, and maybe he'll just have to work off his ill deeds. So a lot of world building, a lot of setting up your characters in this one. Neat situations. Like, what would it be like if the last time you had to talk to your loved one was they had a radio and you could talk to them, but you didn't have your final words with them, but everyone's going to hear it. That's an interesting, kind of terrible situation. I mean, I guess it's better you get your final words than not at all, but it's broadcast. So, they're doing some clever things like that in the book. The art, the backgrounds are really good. The art is very, very indie. I was trying to think of a way to talk about the way the characters are done. It's like the opposite of photorealism. If you don't like it where it's like, oh, that character, they're just photorealistic. This is completely the other way, where there are lines and scratchiness on the characters that's supposed to give you an idea of how they feel. It makes everybody look pretty haggard. So clear backgrounds with characters with a lot of artistic personality added in. So I think it'll be for some people. Some people may be like, it'll take a little while to warm up to.
Yeah.
So that is Radio Apocalypse #1. It is out in every store as soon as it arrives. Hopefully we'll get ours tomorrow. Let's hope. We're checking every single day. So that's my little review of that. The rest of these we didn't get to read at all, so we're just going to go through them pretty quick.
So next up is House of Slaughter #2.
Number one.
Number 1, second printing.
Yes.
Right, yeah. So this came out, 2 or 3 weeks ago?
About 3 weeks
About
ago.
3 weeks ago. Big hit. I mean, everyone, this was one of the most talked about books around here that, the spinoff of Something is Killing the Children. So this is the #1 second printing. It also has a foil cover that looks just like this, but shiny.
Yeah, and I think it's $1 more. So
okay,
look for this A cover, and then its foil variant.
And then there is also it's a 1 in 10.
Yes, this is a 1 in 10 that your store might have, depending.
Yeah, by Jay Lee for this. It's crazy now that even other printings are getting ratio variants. But this one's really cool, so check with your store. Every store prices their stuff a little bit differently, so check with yours to find out the price.
Another big book that has not arrived, King Spawn #4. So this is the regular cover for that, like what they're doing with the black and whites. Almost looks like a negative.
Yeah.
And this is the Fernandez variant. So that will also be out as soon as they arrive. I mean, who knows? Some stores might have got their stuff.
Yeah.
So you might be able to get this in yours right away.
Next up is Primordial #3 by Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino. Then we have the Linux variant, which Lemire actually worked with on a little indie title a few years ago.
I think that's adorable. They're all like on the moon looking over.
It's like Homeward Bound space. I like that. And then we have the Shimizu variant.
Yep. Also out is Eat the Rich #4, which I know you've been reading that.
Yeah,
I reviewed it today. Had it been here?
I know. I'm excited to see where this goes because every issue it gets more and more deep into the weird world of this family and their justifications for what they do. So I'm excited to see where this one goes.
This has a variant by Carrie, is the artist name, and I swear that's like Dr. Seuss font to me, but I don't think the skull or the skeletal hand looks very Dr. Seuss.
No. Then we have Star Wars High Republic Adventures: The Monster of Temple Peak #3.
I believe
it's #4.
Yeah, it's the last issue.
It's the last issue. Yeah, I remember because it's a weird number. Usually they do odd numbers, but #4. So rounding off this little mini series. And then Star Wars High Republic Adventures #10. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm wondering, where this is going to wrap up. I think it's probably going to be ending pretty soon, so see where we're heading with that.
Yeah, because Disney's not letting IDW do any more Star Wars books coming up. So, okay, so we did that just because these books have not arrived, but we didn't want you to not know about every single book that might be out at your store by the time you get there. That is our job on the show. So
we take it very seriously.
We do. We really try. We really, really do every week. So I hope we have done our job and we have informed you well. You're ready to march in your store and grab up all the good comics you want and know which ones that you're like, that's my second tier. Let's see if I have enough money in the wallet for the second tier.
And then maybe come back a day or so later and check and see if they got the rest of the books if they don't have them the first time.
Yep. All right, well, thank you. And we will be back on Friday with Comics from the Future. If we were at all helpful, please hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. We keep gaining our numbers. Little by little, we're taking over. So thank you, and we will see you on Friday.